Yes, I think, at least in America, there's a lot of depictions of scary ghosts and scary spirits, but I've also seen in Japanese media where spirits are seen as more helpful or like kind spirits. Um, and I also know in America there is a religious side to spirits as well. So sometimes they're portrayed as like more holy being, like the Holy Spirit, or those that are kind of sad and trying to move on, but they can't. So I guess there's different depictions of ghosts and spirits, but the first thing that comes in my mind is the horror movie aspect of it. Um, Personally, I'm too scared to watch most horror movies, so um, you do a very good job with the makeup and VFX, but I really hope if spirits are real, I really hope they don't look like that.
Um, I think that well, I think there's a lot of different portrayals. I think the most common idea of ghosts in scary movies and things like that is usually they try and show them to be kind of crazy. Whoever the person is that's acting as the ghost or whatever usually looks creepier. They do something to make it them look more dead or whatever. Um I I think that it's interesting. I don't think it's necessarily wrong. Um but more so funny because we're trying to portray something that's not in our plane. So we can't, we don't know how. So we're just doing our best. So I more so just find it interesting because how different parts of media, pop culture and things of the sort talk about or show um their representations of spirits, ghosts, etc. is always a little different, and you can kind of get a really interesting perspective on what that person might be trying to think or feel about spirits.
I think spirits and ghosts are kind of unknown to us, so that makes them automatically kind of scary to the viewer, but to like push that like fear reaction further and get more um like reviews on horror films and stuff, they have to really up the um scariness level to get the audience engaged. And sometimes they give the spirits a backstory, like how they died, or um, like the scary nun or the scary farmer or whatever. There's always like a weird backstory to the ghosts and spirits. And I think humans are also afraid of death, so they might be using that to make the ghosts even scarier.
It's hard to know. Obviously I say I think it shows what their interpretation usually would be. So I try my best not to judge how other people might interpret. Um because I know we all have different opinions of things of the sort.
Of
So
course.
the thought process, I think, you know, sometimes they may not be thinking, sometimes they might be just throw a sheet over this person because that's what people are used to seeing as a ghost type of thing. But sometimes they might put a lot more thought into it. That's no, this is how I believe a spirit would interact with a person, so I'm going to portray it like this when I do it. um so I think that you can tell what their thought process is behind it usually, depending on how they portray it. And none of them are necessarily wrong because yet again, it's something we aren't certain of. We have all these different um, beliefs and views and ways of portraying things because it's not a concrete fact that we can all agree on.
I think because of my lack of belief in spirits and ghosts, it's hard to engage in um, religious activities where you like call upon the spirits or yeah, your ghost of ancestors and stuff, because it doesn't feel as real to me. But other than that, it doesn't really impact my life. Um, yeah.
What about
It
the
doesn't really.
life of those around you, like your family or friends? Or perhaps maybe the way that they think about different things in life. Do you think it has much impact there on them?
Yes, I think the belief in spirits impact their religion. So if they like feel a spirit, they might, choose to pray more, or um, if they're thinking about their ancestors' spirits, they might feel sad or try to amends with them.
I was raised Muslim. So in Islam, they do believe in spirits. But they also they don't really believe in like good spirits. It's usually like if a spirit is left on the earth, it's because something bad happened. They weren't necessarily the best soul or whatever. So then they turn into like demons, basically. They have Arabic words for them, but in in English,
Gee,
um, they're basically like demons on the planet. So I always had like some sort of acceptance of that spirituality. However, I think that like that belief in the souls like moving to heaven or being stuck or whatever like consequences that end up happening, it it definitely affects how like people interact and live, because that's why like Muslims and Islam are so catered towards you got to do this for you got to pray 5 times a day, fast for Ramadan. We have to, be acting our best selves to make sure we get into heaven. We have to make sure we're treating each other certain ways, doing certain things. Um it that belief in the spirits and what could happen, I think puts a lot of fear into people essentially. So that makes them like behave more towards like that sort of religion construct that like or not construct but structure, that religious structure that like moves them forward. Yeah. Yeah. I think that they we exist. They exist. And they aren't necessarily all good or all bad or all the same. I think that there could be negative spirits, demons, good spirits. There could be ghosts, but there's also spirits that don't necessarily interact with human life. They just are spirits watching over us as well that we could communicate with if we wanted to in a different way. Um, but I think that also everybody's interpretation of those things are still correct. And I don't think that we should judge each other for it. And that's my point.